Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the winter warm-up. We are going to do my all-time starting lineup. We're going to have a DH instead of a pitcher hitting. We are going to do starting 5 pitchers and 2 closers. Along with the starting lineup, we're going to have a pinch hitter from the left side and a pinch hitter from the right side. Obviously, this is subjective. I mean, I'm going to give you what I think it would be my team. We are going to, and this is all time. So last week we did guys that I saw play. This is just guys of any era. So we are going to lead things off. And maybe this is already controversial. Ozzie Smith at shortstop. So Ozzie Smith, what does he do in his career? His name is known as the Wizard of Oz. He comes up with the San Diego Padres in 1978. Ultimately, before the 82 season, the Cardinals trade Gary Templeton to San Diego, and they get back Ozzie Smith, and they win the World Series that year. That's how important he was to that team. Ozzie Smith won 13 Gold Gloves, but he developed as a hitter too. He became a clutch hitter. In fact, came in second in the MVP voting in 1987. In 1985, he hits the famous "Go Crazy, folks, go crazy." His first left-handed home run of his career is in Game 5 of the league championship series against the Dodgers. It's a walk-off home run. The next day, they win the pennant, or 2 days later, they win the pennant in Los Angeles. Ozzie's a Hall of Famer, just a smart ball player. He's going to be my shortstop and leading off my team. Coming in next, Willie Mays is going to be my center fielder. So the Say Hey Kid, right? Famous for the catch in the 1954 World Series that saved Game 1 and saved the day for the Giants. Again, he comes up in 51. He retires with the New York Mets in 73. He's my center fielder, 660 home runs, 24-time All-Star. So back in the 50s and 60s, there was 2 All-Star games. So you're going to see some of the guys on the list with all kinds of All-Star games. There was a series of years where there was 2 All-Star games. 2-time MVP in 54 and 65. Rookie of the Year in 51. 12 Gold Gloves for Willie Mays. Again, we talked about the 660 home runs. That's fourth. Yeah. Bonds, Aaron, 5th. Bonds, Aaron, Ruth, Pujols, and Mays. Actually, A-Rod and Mays. Batting title in 54. 4-time home run champion. Hit 4 home runs in a game one time. Not many guys have ever done that. That was in 65. Elected to the Hall of Fame in 79. And led the league in stolen bases 4 times from 56 to 59. Willie Mays is in the 2-hole. He can hit you a home run, or he can knock Ozzie in with something else. Batting third in my classic lineup is Babe Ruth. George Herman Ruth is going to be my right fielder. You know, my grandfather, Robert Nolting, was born on December 14th of 1913. He saw Ruth play. He grew up in St. Louis. Back then, St. Louis had the Cardinals and the St. Louis Browns, which were an American League team that eventually in 54 moved to Baltimore and became the Orioles. So living in St. Louis, you could see American League baseball and nationally. He saw Ruth. Ruth was a great fielder. Ruth was a great base runner. You know, people say, oh, Babe Ruth's fat and unathletic. No, Babe Ruth was 6'3". He was a man-child for that era. He was a great pitcher first. Of course, he won 94 ball games. He was 94 and 46 with a 2.28 career earned run average. Think about that. The Sultan of SWAT, the Bambino, 342 lifetime batting average, 714 home runs, 2,214 RBIs. Albert Pujols just passed him with 2,218. 7-time home run champion. Hit 60 home runs. First guy ever to hit 60. 2 times he hit more home runs himself than all of the American League teams. So, for instance, for the Yankees, he hit 54 home runs in 1920. Boston Red Sox only had 50 home runs, or the Washington Senators only had 40 home runs. So twice he hit more home runs than the total of the teams in the American League. That is dominance. That's dominating your sport. He had 100 and he was in the first Hall of Fame class in 1936. In 1920 and 1927 were the years where he out-homered the teams in the league. He was just a dominant player. 13 times he had an OPS over 1,100. Think about that. Babe Ruth, enough said. Cleaning up. Who's going to clean up? Who's number 4 for the Yankees? Lou Gehrig is going to be my first baseman, and as he should be. Lou Gehrig comes up in 1923. Of course, he plays with Ruth. He's actually the cleanup hitter on the famous teams of the Yankees. He wins the Triple Crown in 1934. He hit 4 home runs in a game like Willie Mays did in 1932. 8 times he had 200 hits. Listen to his numbers in 1927, okay? That's the year Ruth hit 60. 149 runs scored, 218 hits, 52 doubles, 18 triples, 47 homers, 147 RBIs, a 373 batting average, and a 1229 OPS, 1.229 OPS. Unbelievable. That's over 100 extra base hits in a season. That's only been done a few times. Again, 52 doubles, 18 triples, and 47 bombs. Unbelievable. He had a 340 lifetime average. He had 2,721 hits. He had 493 home runs and 1,995 RBIs. And he would have continued playing, but he came down with ALS, which then they named Lou Gehrig's disease, and he died. I mean, he was dead by 1941. Musial is going to be my number 5 hit. Stan, the man, Musial, comes up with the Cardinals in 1941. And by the way, he's going to be my left fielder. Plays all the way to 63. His last hit in 1963 goes past the diving Pete Rose at second base for Cincinnati. He has the 331 lifetime batting average. He wins 7 batting titles. He has 475 home runs, 1,951 RBIs. Listen to this. He had 10 or more triples in a season 10 times. He had 20 or more triples in a season twice. So he could run. He had 177 triples in his career, but he also had 725 doubles. He came a home run short of the Triple Crown. Again, the Triple Crown's leading the league in batting average, leading the league in home runs, leading the league in RBIs. So in that 48th season, he had 135 runs scored, 230 hits, 46 doubles, 18 triples, 39 bombs, 131 RBIs, and he batted 376. I think Johnny Mize had 40 home runs, and he only had 39, or he would have been a Triple Crown winner. He was classy. He was a great guy in the community here in St. Louis. He had 200 hits 6 times. He had exactly the same number of hits, 18-15 at home and 18-15 on the road. 24-time All-Star, 3-time World Series champion. That's Stan the Musial. Who is going to be my 6th guy? Mike Schmidt. Mike Schmidt's going to be my 3rd baseman. I struggled with this because I think defensively that Nolan Arenado is better. I think ultimately Nolan Arenado, who's been playing for 10 years, could be my all-time 3rd baseman. For right now, I cannot take away the fact that he had 548 home runs at 3rd base. He had almost 1,600 RBIs. He was a 12-time All-Star. He was a 3-time MVP. He won the home run title 8 times as a third baseman. He played from 72 to 89. He won 10 Gold Gloves. Nolan Arenado's got 10 Gold Gloves in 10 seasons. And like Gehrig and like Willie Mays, he also hit 4 home runs in one game. Mike Schmidt is my third baseman. My DH is Ted Williams. So Ted Williams, nickname was the Kid. They also called him the Splendid Splinter because he was 6'2" or 6'3" and thin. Listen to this. They also called him Teddy Ballgame, which is a great nickname. Last guy ever to hit 400, 406 and 41. Batted 406 and 41. That's the year also that DiMaggio had the hitting streak. He played from 39 to 60. So like Rickey Henderson and like Nolan Ryan, he played in 4 different decades. 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Lifetime batting average, 344. The highest in the modern era. 521 home runs. 1,839 RBIs. The highest on-base percentage in the history of baseball. 482. That's the highest lifetime on-base percentage in baseball history. 19-time All-Star, 2 Triple Crowns. 2 Triple Crowns. 6 batting titles. But he also missed parts of 4 baseball seasons. He missed the entire 43, 44, and 45 seasons because he was in World War II. Okay, again, he has 1,800 RBIs and 521 home runs, but he missed 3 seasons in World War II and 2 more seasons in Korea. What does he do in Korea? He successfully flies 39 ground attack missions flying over Korea. One of those missions, he was shot down and actually was able to keep this thing from crashing. All bullet-laden. Sprains his ankle on the crash landing. Comes back and plays baseball. I mean, again, you're missing full 3 seasons in World War. Think about that. And you come back and you're winning batting titles. Again, missed 43, 44, 45, and most of 52 and 53. Plays all the way to 60. Ted Williams is my DH. We can go on and on. Who is my catcher? Who's batting 8th? Johnny Bench. So Johnny Bench comes up in 1967. By 1970, he's an MVP. By the way, he wins the 68 Rookie of the Year. He retires in 83. I don't really remember him playing. I mean, when I was a kid, he was a personality. He was a huge star. But really, he was playing third base by that time for the Reds. He ends up hitting, 389 home runs, which was a record for a long time for a catcher. 1,376 RBIs. But more importantly, he changed the way the catching position was played. Prior to Johnny Bench, catchers are more like a two-handed catching thing. He defines the hand behind the back. He defines gunning guys out, 110 Gold Gloves. The one-handed catching approach. He made that change. He changed the position of catcher. 2 MVPs, wins the World Series and loses the World Series in 70 and 72, wins it in 75, 76. He's the 14-time All-Star. 14-time All-Star. And they weren't doing two a year at that point. 2-time MVP. Johnny Bench is my catcher. And Rogers, the Raja Hornsby, is my second baseman. He's batting 9th. Rogers Hornsby batting 9th. He had a 358 lifetime batting average. And again, it's Rogers with an S on the end. Hornsby. He's going to be my second baseman. So here's my lineup. Ozzie Smith, Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Stan Musial, Mike Schmidt, Ted Williams, Johnny Bench, and Rogers Hornsby. What did Rogers Hornsby do from 1915 to 1937? He batted 358. He had 2,930 hits. He had 301 home runs. So he played in the dead ball era for 5 years. right? The home runs really don't start coming till 1920. Ruth hits 29 home runs. When he hits 29 home runs in 1919, that breaks the major league record. And then Ruth shatters his own record in 1920 with 54. So 1920 is when the baseball was livened up a little bit. But he still had 300 home runs. He had 1,584 RBIs. He was a two-time MVP in 25 and 29. Played for the Cardinals. Won a World Series with the Cardinals in 1926, their first championship. He won the Triple Crown twice, in 22 and 25. Only player ever to have 40 home runs and bat 400. That was in 1922. He hit 40 home runs and batted 400. He hit 400 three times, including the famous 1924 season with the highest record in league history. He batted 424. 424. The 1922 season, listen to this. 141 runs, 250 hits, 46 doubles, 14 triples, 42 bombs, 152 RBIs, batted 401, and had an 1181 OPS. 7 batting titles, and he hit 304 times. Again, there's my starting lineup. Ozzie Smith, Willie Mays, Ruth, Gehrig, Stan Musial, Mike Schmidt, Ted Williams, Johnny Bench, Rogers, Hornsby. Who's coming off my bench? Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio, Joltin' Joe, the Yankee Clipper, played 13 seasons. So he did not have a long career. Played from 36 to 51. He batted 325. Now, back in the day, for a right-handed hitter at Yankee Stadium, the power alley was like 390 out there. It was crazy. It was hard to hit a home run. He manages 361 home runs in a 13-year career. That's insane. But, I mean, you could smoke a ball to left field and it's warning track, or if that. You know, it's not like Fenway Park. If he played at Fenway Park, he would have had 500 home runs. Still, he has almost 2,300 hits. Excuse me. He has 2,214 hits, 361 home runs, 1,537 RBIs. He wins 9 World Series. He's a 9-time World Series champ. 13 All-Star games, 2 batting titles. Had a 56-game hitting streak. So he actually wins the MVP in 41. The same year, Ted Williams hits 406. DiMaggio wins the MVP. He was a graceful fielder. He was a class act. He married Marilyn Monroe. And some people, including my grandfather, who we talked about earlier, says he's the best right-handed hitter of all time. He's coming off the bench for me. I was gonna put a left-handed pinch hitter in Reggie Jackson, but how do I not have Hank Aaron on this team? Hank Aaron, Hammer and Hank's coming off my bench. Maybe he starts at DH sometimes. 755 home runs, 305 lifetime average, 2,297 RBIs. 2,297 RBIs. That's a record. Never hit 50 home runs, but he was consistent. 8 times he had over 8 times he had over 40 home runs. He hit 30 home runs in 15 different seasons. He won the World Series in 57. Just a class guy. I think he won the MVP also. He's a 25-time All-Star, 3 Gold Gloves, and 2 batting titles. Now let's talk about pitching. Sandy Koufax. Again, these are players I've never seen play before. After my grandfather, who again we're talking about, lived in St. Louis into the 50s, he moves to Los Angeles and he watches Sandy Koufax's career. Koufax comes up with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 55. They actually move, of course, in 57 to Los Angeles, and he only plays until 66. He was 165 in 87. He had a 2.76 ERA. He had 2,400 strikeouts, right, in 11 years. He was a 7-time All-Star. He won 4 World Series. He was the 63 MVP. He won 3 Cy Young Awards. He had 4 no-hitters, including a perfect game. He was the World Series MVP in 63 and 65. Again, a perfect game. He won the pitching Triple Crown 3 times, including his final season. 63, 65, and 66. So his last 2 seasons, he wins the Triple Crown, which is winning league and wins, ERA, strikeouts. He also had 382 strikeouts, which was a record until Nolan Ryan had 383. So he went out on top. He had elbow issues, but he's the best pitcher in the world when he retires. Bob Gibson is my right-hander. Bob Gibson played from 59 to 75. Played for the Cardinals. He won the MVP in 68 when he had a 1.12 ERA and 300 innings pitched. That's a record. That same season, he had 13 shutouts. 13 shutouts. From June to July of 68, he went 12-0 with 12 complete games. He won 251 games, 251 and 190 and 174, with a 2.91 ERA, 3,100 strikeouts, 9-time All-Star. Again, all those complete games. He had 13 shutouts in 68. He could hit. He had 17 strikeouts in Game 1 of the 1968 World Series. He struck out 17 Tigers. Won the Cy Young twice, MVP in 68, 9 Gold Gloves. Kershaw only has had 25 complete games in his career. 25 complete games in his career. Gibson had 12 complete games in June and July of 68. He had something like 200 and something complete games. Randy Johnson comes in next. Randy Johnson, the big unit, was 6'10", left-handed dominance, had a no-hitter and a complete game. We talked about him last week on my show of the best guys I've ever seen play. Played from 88 to 2009, won 303 games, 303 and 166. By the way, going back to Gibson, Gibson hit a home run in the 67 World Series and the 68 World Series. He had 24 home runs in his 24 home runs in his career, and he had 28 complete games in 68. That's 3 more complete games in one season than Kershaw's had in his career. Sorry about that. Back to Gibson. 5 Cy Youngs, 10-time All-Star, Triple Crown of pitching in 2002, 3.29 ERA lifetime, 4,875 strikeouts. Again, the perfect game in 04. In 2002, he was 24-5 with a 2.32 ERA and 334 strikeouts. Randy Johnson. Warren Spahn. My father wasn't a huge baseball fan. My father, rest in peace, just passed away 3 weeks ago. But he always talked about Warren Spahn. I guess because that's the name when he was growing up. That was huge. Spahn paid from 42 to 65. He has the most wins in modern baseball history. Second most wins is Greg Maddux, right? He was 363 and 245 with a 3.09 ERA, 2,500 strikeouts, 17-time All-Star, 2 no-hitters, won the World Series in 57 and Cy Young. 8 times he led the league in wins. Hall of Famer in 73. He won 20 games 13 times. Warren Spahn's joining my all-time starting lineup with Gibson, Koufax, Randy Johnson, Warren Spahn. Rounding out my pitching is Nolan Ryan. And by the way, you're noticing I'm not doing Christy Matheson. I'm not doing Bob Feller. I'm not doing Cy Young. I'm not doing Grover Cleveland Alexander. So this is my starting 5. And I know it's pretty much the modern era, but let's face it, pitchers, I think, got better. They faced better. I don't want to say they faced better hitting, but these are my guys. Nolan Ryan had 7 no-hitters, 12 one-hitters, 18 two-hitters, and 31 three-hitters. Do I need to say anything more? 5,700 strikeouts, won 324 games, had his number retired with the Rangers, Astros, and Angels. Beat up Robin Ventura when Robin Ventura was stupid enough to charge the mound in '93. Struck out 306 times, had a 383 strikeout season, and led the league in strikeouts 11 times. 3.19 ERA lifetime. Okay, my closers, Dennis Eckersley. Dennis Eckersley does not make my other list from last week. But you know what? I am going to include him because he was completely dominant. Not many times in the history of baseball has a closer won a Cy Young. Eckersley wins the Cy Young in 1992. Eckersley comes up with the Cleveland Indians in 1975. He's a starter. He pitches a no-hitter in 1977. Bounces around the league a little bit, goes to, I think, Boston for a little bit, goes to the Cubs, kind of wears down by the mid-'80s. Got some drug and alcohol problems. Tony La Russa picks him up in 1986 with the Oakland Athletics, and they make him into a closer. And he is a ninth-inning lights-out closer. They win the pennant in 88, 89, and 90, with the 89 team winning the World Series. From 1988 to 1997, he's one of the most dominant relief pitchers in the history of the game. Again, wins a Cy Young and an MVP. He's an All-Star 6 times. He had 390 saves in that short period of time. Also won 197 games. Had 2,400 strikeouts. So he did a little bit of everything. Completely dominant. And finally, my other closer is going to be Bruce Sutter. Give Bruce Sutter some love. He invented the split-fingered fastball, which changed baseball. It had been thrown before. Hoyt Wilhelm had thrown a forkball, but the way that Sutter throws this splitter changes the game. Disappears. He won a Cy Young too. So Eckersley and Sutter had won Cy Youngs as closers. Trying to think of anybody else. Did Smoltz do that? I don't know. He pitched from 76 to 88. He was a 6-time All-Star. He had a 2.83 ERA. He won the Rolaids Relief Award for Best Closer 5 times. Again, he came in the 7th inning a lot. He certainly pitched 2 innings a lot. The days where you bring in the closer for the last 3 outs, back then when Sutter pitched in the 70s and 80s, those guys would come in the 7th inning in a jam, get an out in the 7th, get 2 outs in the 7th, get all outs in the 8th and all outs in the 9th, and that's how you get a save back in the day. 10 times he had over 80 innings 80 innings pitched in a season. Eckersley never did that when he was relieving. Mariano Rivera only did that twice. Hope you guys are enjoying my shows. Subscribe to my channel. We'll do baseball every week. We'll do music. Peace out. Take care.